Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rockin' Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score. Welcome to Alabama week. Welcome to Injury Subterfuge week. Welcome to basking in the glow of a glorious, legend-making victory. Hurst, how you doing?
Feeling good. Still riding high. Voice is doing a little bit better. Here we are, 3-4 days out. I'm listing myself as probable for Saturday, so chances are good that I'll be up and running full speed ahead by then.
Fantastic. So we talked about celebrating Auburn in the last show. Mostly talked about how great Brady Cook was and what a legendary performance that was, and that's still all true. I did a beyond the box score for the game because that's what I'm paid to do. And man, it just there's not a lot you can take from it. It was a defensive slugfest on both sides. Both offenses were mostly inept. Mizzou's for a different reason than Auburn's. But it played out kind of how we anticipated. Auburn could move the ball, really just could not figure out what to do once they got into scoring position. And of course, Mizzou was without Brady Cook for the majority of the possessions that they had the ball. And then he came back and won the game. Success rates were awful, below 30% for both teams. It was an explosive play necessity for Mizzou, and really they could only get those with Brady on the field. So outside of Brady Cook's heroics, is there anything that your view has changed or you feel differently about the game from when we recorded to today?
No, I mean it's a pretty unique game in terms of the way that it played out, right? Where it's hard to draw a whole lot out of that can apply to other games moving forward, with the exception of the defense. And we talked about it a little bit on Saturday, but the fact that they gave up 10 points, and is Auburn's offense super high scoring? No, but they can make big plays, and they only got one all game. And the defense scored, held them to 10 points, and got off the field at the important times when they had to get off the field. And I think that's the one thing that in rewatching the game again stuck out even more the second time, was just how prepared they were, how ready they were. Now, I think a lot of that can also go on Auburn and some of the strange decisions that they made. They played very conservatively. I think once they thought that Cook was not coming back in the game, they if they didn't adjust their play calling, they certainly backed off the gas a little bit. And then ultimately regretted that when Cook comes back and boom, 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 15 minutes later, the game is over and you lost. So would they have called the game differently? Would they have taken more deep shots had Cook been in the whole time? Had it been a higher scoring affair? Probably. It's hard to say, but as it stands, they only took the one shot. It worked. So for whatever reason, they didn't take any more. And Mizzou got off the field when they had to.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, if you look at because I break down run, pass, yardage by down and by quarter, just to give you an idea of when what down the yards are happening, what quarter most of the yards are happening, and it was low possession, for Auburn. Only 63 plays is what they ran. But to back up your point, I mean, they ran the ball 5 times in the first quarter versus 4 passes. They ran the ball 7 times in the second quarter versus 11 passes. And then they ran the ball 12 times versus 9 passes in the third quarter. That's kind of where they're like, okay, there's not a lot of urgency here. We're up by multiple scores. Let's keep it safe. Let's not put Peyton Thorne in a position where he can lose it or turn it over. And that's kind of what they did. And then once we got to the fourth quarter and it was a game again, 8 runs, 7 passes. So they're pretty balanced in the fourth quarter. But the other thing that you got to keep in mind is that they were able to stay on first and second down during the third quarter the most. That was actually the quarter where they had their most success, 59% success rate in the third quarter. So they were running on first and second down more often than not. 17 runs on first down for the game, 11 runs on second down for the game, versus 4 runs on third down. And they called 10 passes on each down, right? 10 on first, 10 on second, 10 on third. So they were definitely looking to run the ball more, and they just had more plays in the third quarter because the defense was kind of out of sorts a little bit, and they were playing it safe, and they just couldn't make those plays happen. So The third quarter is where they got their yards, 135. It's where they had the most possessions. They had or most plays run. They had 21. And they were trying to play it safe by running the ball because Brady Cook wasn't there. So I agree with you on that. It was mostly just make sure Peyton Thorne doesn't turn over the ball. And I know Hugh Freeze talks about it, but we can talk about it because we're not his coach. That's kind of what he does. And they wanted to try and play it safe, and it worked. And then Brady Cook came back, and then he couldn't really start it up. And again, for Brady, legend, just absolute legend. He was able to generate big plays on the ground with his legs, through the air, to his receivers. I said Mizzou needed 7 explosive plays. They got 9. And that's really what carried their entire offense for the game. So it was good. But, I wanted to talk a little bit about Eli Drinkwitz, the coach, the football coach, because I think he gets enough worthy criticism on how he manages a game, how he manages his timeouts, how he manages fourth downs, whether to go for it or not, play for the field goal or not. Auburn was just a couple of those instances, like the timeout management, the field goals, trying out Blake Craig for 50-yard field goals. Like he gets these weird things, right? And you get mad at the guy for making these really weird decisions in the heat of the moment. But then you also got to realize he crafts this team that just keeps fighting, and they can watch their starting quarterback limp off the field and still go 100% and hold on until he miraculously comes back and wins the game. So, like, how do we balance this, Hurst? I mean, he's responsible for his own gaffes and putting his team in impossible situations. Think of K-State last year, but he's also the guy that makes the team, gets these guys here, and has players that can get them through this and win the game. So how do you balance that?
I mean, there are 3 big, at least the way I see it, 3 big duties that a head college football coach has. The first one being build the team. So get the players to come and play for you because they have options. The second one is to create the team culture, and that there's a lot that goes into that off the field. Managing workouts, managing just the internal look and feel of the team, the vibe of the team, if you will. And then third is on the field, managing their execution on the field. Now, I think without question, Eli Drinkwitz nails the first 2 of those. He has recruited better than any Mizzou coach certainly in this century has ever done, but probably in all likelihood any Mizzou coach has ever done. And he's created an incredible, what they call the brotherhood off of the field, where this team is able to come together, to rally together. He's identified clear leaders, or at least they've identified themselves, and he has elevated them to a point where they have leadership. He did it with Darius Robinson. He did it with Cody Schrader. He's done it with Brady Cook. So he's identified them. He's figured out who the team looks to, who the team responds to, and he's put those players in a position to lead and play for each other. And he's done that remarkably well as well, and really as better, if not as good, but potentially better than Gary Pinkel did. Now on the field, that's a different thing, and I think a lot of fans really look. The most visible part to us, to fans, is the on the field, because we're not in the locker room, we're not in the practices, we're not seeing the day-to-day grind that goes into this. When in reality, on the field for college football is probably 5%, if not less, of the actual amount of work that goes into being a college football head coach. However, it's the most visible. He nails the first 2 things. On the field, it's a mixed bag. He certainly gets credit for bringing the guys in. He gets credit for getting them prepared, getting them ready to go. And I feel like minus just 2 or 3 duds, Texas A&M included, this team seems to be prepared to play. Whatever strategies they come in and game plan, for the most part, haven't had a huge qualm with that, with the way he gets his team ready to go. But it's those in the heat of the moment plays, which, if we're talking about being on the field 5% of the job, the heat of the moment, fourth downs, your end of clock situations, that drops that down to 0.5% of the time. But that, once again, is the most impactful, at least from a fan's perspective. Those are the ones where you start to question it. And yeah, I mean, could it be better? Yes, absolutely, could it be better? But there are plenty of ways he could be way worse. So I think Drinkwitz is a guy that you're just going to have to learn to take what the good with the bad, or the bad with the good, if you will, because there's a lot of good there. There's a lot of what are you thinking here, and it's kind of I'm not really sure if I've answered your question, but it's a very complicated one, and I think he gets lots of credit. In the Auburn game, he gets credit for building this team, for putting Brady Cook in a position where he can succeed, and then the players take it from there. I don't want to split up into percentages. I think that's kind of impossible to say, but he brought his assistant coaches in who've also managed the game well. You just wish he had, if he had an assistant coach for game time decisions. I think that might be the answer there. I don't think he would do that. I mean, that's supposed to be one of the most important jobs a college coach can have, a head coach can have. But he nails the CEO part of it. He definitely nails that. And honestly, if I'm going to have to pick one area where he's not as great at, it's going to be the area that he's not as great at. Because if you can't recruit, if you have a terrible internal culture, it doesn't matter what your game time decisions are, what your fourth down decisions are, what your kicker, whether you kick it, whether you go for it, when you call your timeouts. That doesn't matter because you're not in the position. You're rarely, if ever, in a position where that even matters in the first place. So I'm going to take. If I had to choose, I'm going to take what he is good at, because he is doing a really good job there.
That's fair. If you do this exercise with Gary Pinkel, I think he would be the exact opposite, where really good at culture, sure, just like Drink. Really good, I would say, at the tactics, the game day stuff. Very rarely would you question what Pinkel was doing on the field. And then probably his worst was recruiting. Not that it was terrible, but it was not his strong suit. And he did not have a staff full of recruiters who could go in and pull out blue chippers or anything like that. They're really good at identifying projects and building those projects up. So I think we just got the inverse of that. Both Pink and Drink are very good at the culture part. No, I mean, he gets full credit for this team. Whatever happens, I think that's always going to be the answer. It falls on him 100%, no matter what happens, no matter where he puts his fingers. I mean, you're also talking to the guy who is advocating for giving him a headset that he can hear but not talk on, or just take the headset away completely on game day, give him a phone, and just have him sex recruits the entire time. Like, I would be in favor of that. Obviously, that's a bad look. That's mostly facetious, but like, you're good at so many other things. Just let somebody else do it. And to your point, that's the most visible. That would look terrible if your head man was not active on the field during a game, which is the whole point, of why we are doing this. A game day coach, right? Wartime consigliere, someone who can go in there and make those calls. I'd be okay with that. And that's not a slight to Drink. This is hard. Making decisions real time like that is really freaking hard. Very easy for us to do in our basement, sitting on the couch, but it's hard to do, especially when your multi-million-dollar job is on the line. So I'm not giving him grief for that. It is hard, but 50-yard field goals, man, like that. This isn't your guy, calling a timeout to try and get the ball back and then deciding, no, wait. No, we're going to run the clock out. Like, make a decision, have a flow chart of choices and figure this out before you get to game day. And if you already have it, then stick to that flow chart, right? Like, it's tough. I don't always understand why he makes the choices that he does. The other thing I would point to is just, a demerit for him. We talked about it before. Road games. Okay. Not great in road situations. I understand college football teams are worse on the road than they are at home, but you have a 7-13 true road record. That's 35% win percentage. You're not going to get rid of road wins, or road games, I should say. And most of the road wins are against like bad Vanderbilt teams or like South Carolina, which tends to not be able to beat Missouri. We'll figure that out later. They're not impressive road wins. And any road game against a competent team or a peer team, a team that can beat you, you usually lose. So other than last year. So I would put a demerit on that. However, let me go ahead and give him his credit. What's the home record? Do you know Eli Drinkwitz's record at home by chance?
I know it's very good. but I couldn't tell. I would guess. I could guess winning percentage. She's probably in the 80 to 85% range.
Close. He is 25-7, which is 78.1%. Okay.
Yeah, and that's excellent.
And like 2 of those home losses were in Alabama in 20, Georgia in 20, like understandable.
Well, he lost the eventual national champion twice in
Yep.
Alabama and then Georgia in 22.
Yeah. So, I mean, the home losses are understandable. And I'm not saying the road losses aren't, but, you got a Boston College in there. That one wasn't great. You lost to Tennessee on the road before. That wasn't great. You lose to a Florida team that wasn't very good. That's not great. So like it is a demerit on him, but he's also does really well at home. And let's talk about it again. Eli Drinkwitz's record in 1-score games. I'm not going to make you guess. Well, what's his win percentage? If you had to guess, what is his win percentage in 1-score games?
Just across the board, home and away.
Yep.
Well, it was really bad until last year. I'm gonna go. It's probably 500 at this point.
So this is something that he is actually surprisingly good at. He is 68% win percentage in 1-score games, 15-7.
Wow, I guess they passed it up last year. 2020 they won a lot of 1-score games too. I guess now that I'm thinking about
2020 was inflated by 1-score games. Absolutely. They either got blown out or won by a little bit. So if it's within 8, Drinkwitz has got a chance. And I think that's what I come down to most. Like, he is going to make confusing decisions. He is going to trust his kicker probably a little too much. He's not going to move away from his starters as much as we would like. But at the end of the day, when he coaches a game, it is a close game. It is close at the end, whether Mizzou's the better team or the worst team. It is close at the end, and he has built a culture and brought in players and has a scheme on both sides that keeps him in it and keeps him fighting and gives him a chance to win games. And at the end of the day, you have to win the games. And despite the road record, he has done pretty well at doing that. So credit, 100% credit goes to him, good and bad. You would like to see some more, a little clearer or consistent on decision making. But at the end of the day, if he's keeping it close, he's got a chance to win. And that's the point of playing these games.
So, I mean, they're 17-3 in their last 20 games. So you can argue and complain quite a bit, and there's plenty to nitpick about on the field. But at the bottom line, it's 17-3, and all of the bewildering decisions that he has made in those 3 losses, none of those mattered. I don't think his decisions they certainly didn't cost the Texas A&M game. The Georgia game, I don't think he made any. I'm thinking back. Don't think he made any bewildering decisions there. I mean, they were right in that game until the interception late. And then the third loss that I'm trying to LSU once again right there in the middle of it. Turnover late kind of doomed them as well. So you can nitpick, but that's at this point that's what it is nitpicking, because we talked about them winning all those close games. Okay, he makes weird end of game decisions, weird timeout decisions. They haven't cost them the game. Now, could it have against Kansas State at the very, that yes, absolutely could have cost them in that game and probably a couple of others, but it hasn't yet. So, eventually the luck might turn, but we don't need to hasten that along any.
No, absolutely not. So yeah, I mean, it's something to think about. So let's get to this week. It's Alabama week, going on the road, which means you're not eligible to win, but 7 times you've won so far. Maybe we can make it an 8th. Let's talk about the injury report, because that dropped this afternoon. Obviously, we got a couple more injury reports to go before everything is said and done and the ball snapped. But in case you are keeping track of home, Missouri's injury list is a doozy. Obviously, you got the guys who we already know are going to be out. That's Darius Smith, Sam Horn, Khalil Jacobs, Joe Moore. We already knew that. Then you get to the doubtfuls. And Nate Noel is doubtful, which sucks. You like to think that light usage last week would have gotten him ready, but apparently not. Mookie Cooper being doubtful. Less concerned about that one. He's a multi-year starter. I know that, but that means we get to see more Josh Manning. So, give and take. And then Brady Cook listed as doubtful. We'll put a pin in that one. You get to questionable, and then you just got Sidney Williams, safety. Trevez Johnson, safety. Dalen Carnell, safety. Joseph Charleston, safety. All your safeties are questionable. Got Caden Green, left guard, questionable. Brett Norfleet, who has been injured all year, questionable. And then Marquise Speedy Johnson is probable. Let's put aside the number of guys real quick. Nathan Hurst, Brady Cook is going to play this game, right? There's no reason for him to be on this injury list reasonably, correct?
I believe that he will do everything in his power to play this game. And I believe that he will play this game unless he is told he is not going to play this game. Now that we're talking about decisions and head coaching decisions earlier. That's one that's going to, I think, ultimately going to come down to Drinkwitz and what his level of what he feels like Brady Cook is capable of doing, what his percentage level is. I mean, he's not going to be 100%. We know that for a fact. He's probably not going to be 80%. So how much farther below that is Drinkwitz willing to go? Also, is Brady making himself more susceptible for further injuring or making it worse? That's another decision that Brady Cook himself probably would say, I don't care, get me on the field.
Mm-hmm.
But that I don't, we know that and we love that about him. I don't want to he does not need that pressure put on him to be on the field if he's not healthy to be on the field. So that's a situation where Drinkwitz might have to step in. We don't know what that's going to be, where that's going to be. But so I don't know if he's going to play or not. If I had to put money on it, I'd err towards him at least starting the game. That said, there's a long way to go before Saturday comes. There's a lot that can happen one way or another. It does sound like, based on reports, that he either didn't practice today, is Wednesday, either didn't practice today or was incredibly limited in the amount of practice that he did do today in terms of what he was physically able to do. We'll see. I think we'll probably see him come out there. Now, does he finish the game? That I don't know, but I think he will start.
Yeah, he talked about he only has so many games left as a Missouri Tiger. He does not want to miss a single one. So, no, I don't think he's going to be the best source of decision-making here because he is going to say, whatever it takes to get me out there, do that. Sacrificing one game, to play all the rest. Well, I don't know. Not a doctor, don't know what his injury is, don't know how bad it is. I don't think you can do another shot of feel good and just say, yeah, well, you're good for 3.5 hours. Let's rock and roll. Like, that's obviously very dangerous. So it's not a good situation for Brady, which means it's not a great situation for the team. Even if Brady was 100%, this is going to be a tough game. It's Alabama. I know it's not the Saban Alabama, but it's still Alabama. They're ranked. You're on the road. Like, you're already behind the 8 ball on that one. So it's I'm assuming he is going to suit up, and I'm assuming he's going to be on the field. I just don't know the effectiveness or the capacity of it. But he is not a dude that just takes a day off, takes a game off. So if resting him through the week is what gets him to play the game, then he's going to do that. I mean, this really isn't the point when it comes to Brady Cook's health, but when it comes to the team, does Missouri have a chance against Alabama without Brady Cook, or does it all hinge on him?
They certainly don't have a chance without Brady Cook. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. Do they have a chance with 50% Brady Cook or 65% Brady Cook? I'm not really sure they do. They have a chance there either, to be honest. And this is, it comes back down to decision making and Eli Drinkwitz. But Mizzou has a bye week next week before playing Oklahoma. If you're looking at a severely compromised Brady Cook, which then in turn severely compromises your entire team's chances of winning the game, is it not worth considering sitting him, getting him 2 full weeks to get ready for a game against Oklahoma, where your fan base certainly has circled that one as the game to win all season. If you're putting Brady Cook out just to either potentially further worsen his injury or at least delay its getting better in a game that is almost certainly not likely going to end in a way that you want it to end. I'm not convinced that it's not worth considering just shutting it down. Now that's hard to tell the rest of the roster that for sure. A defense that hey, go out there and play hard, do your best, but we're not really going to give you a chance to succeed from the very start. That's a tough sell, and I wouldn't envy him if that's what he decides he has to do. So that's why he makes millions of dollars a year, and I don't make that much money. So
there you go. I mean, look, this will be the 8th game of the year. Missouri's not magically becoming a different team at this point. They are essentially who they are. They're efficiency first, second, and third. Hope for a big play, mostly on the ground, and have your defense play competently and keep the game short, and hope that your offense can finish with a lot of points. This isn't going to be the 2023 offense. It's not going to be that. And even that offense was pretty slow and liked to play low possessions. So my point is, if that's not going to change with Brady Cook 100%, 10%, whatever, then I don't think it's worth it here. I think to your point, you're not going to beat Alabama. And if you're not going to beat Alabama, then you're not going to make it far in the playoff. And even if you do go 11-1, either with or without Brady Cook, national pundits don't seem to value Mizzou's wins this year, which is fine. But if that's the case, then you're sacrificing Brady Cook for a goal that's not attainable. And I would argue that an 11-1 SEC team should make the playoff every single year, but we don't know because this is the first year of the expanded playoff. We don't know because we don't know what the ending records of every other team in the country are going to be, so it's, I don't want to say you would get your ass beat in the playoffs, so don't even try. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying if we're risking Brady Cook's long-term health for something that we're probably not going to get, then it's not even worth it. Because that's really what you're doing. You're trying him out there at 50, 60% to try and salvage a playoff run. And if you lose him for that run because of this game, was it worth it? And I don't think it was, or I don't think it would be. So no, I don't think it would be the best, but I do think that he's going to be out there in some capacity, and he'll probably argue to play, and we'll see what Drinkwitz decides. But yeah, Alabama, breaking news, very good. Still very good. I know they lost to Vanderbilt. I know they lost to Tennessee. Still Alabama on the road. I put out my preview today, broken down the offense and the defense. Now, it was all under the assumption that Brady Cook was going to play. Haha, silly me. But it's you watched the Vanderbilt Alabama game, right? Did you watch that from?
I watched the bits and pieces of the end of that. I was walking into a rock show as it was
that's right,
as it was finishing up. But I was Alabama Vanderbilt aware.
Yeah. So there's many ways to win a game. Vanderbilt did it by shrinking the game down, low possessions, 8 possessions each. Just for reference, Missouri's around 10 or 11 usually. They only punted twice. They kicked 2 field goals that they made, and they scored touchdowns on every other possession they had. And then that's the Diego Pavia magic. Tennessee, on the other hand, they sped the game way up, 14, 15 possessions. And so they did make mistakes. They missed 2 field goals. They turned it over once, but they ran enough plays. They're like, it's fine. We'll get more cracks at it. And it worked. They had enough bites at the apple that eventually they got enough points to win. So you got 2 extremes. You could shrink it down and do a rock fight like Vanderbilt, or you could go warp speed and just give yourself 1,000 chances to score. I think we know which way Mizzou is going to go. They're going to shrink the game down. But again, this Alabama's defense is tough. I mean, with potentially Nate Noel out and Brady Cook out, I mean, whether they play or not, what's the key to beating Alabama's defense here?
I mean, it's got to be being effective on the ground,
Yeah.
with or without Brady Cook. That's what Vanderbilt was able to do, especially towards the end of the game. The drives that I was able to see, they were reeling off 4 or 5 yards every single carry, and then the few times that they did have to throw it, it was efficient. It was nothing super far down the field, but quick 7, 8 yard passes that they hit. So it's what Mizzou wants to do, has shown that they can do. Now I don't know if they haven't shown it necessarily against a defense this good, but it's being efficient on the ground, it's controlling the clock, it's not turning the ball over, it's forcing the other team to turn the ball over, and then it's when you do get into scoring position, scoring touchdowns, not scoring field goals. Vanderbilt scored on just about every possession that they had. They did have 2 field goals, but the rest of the time it was touchdowns, and they finished drives, and that's something that Mizzou has struggled with all season long. And it's all gonna come down to that. I mean, I think it's gonna be a lower possession game. I can't imagine it's going to be as ugly as the Texas A&M game was, but you never really know. I think it's going to be closer than that. But it's a matter of, can Mizzou keep the ball? Can they keep possession? Can they keep breaking off 4, 5, 6 yard runs? Maybe force a fumble and get a short yardage drive here or there, and then limit the big plays on the other end. That's really the only way that they're going to have a chance. And it's bleak, but it's possible. If Vanderbilt can beat Alabama, no matter where, no matter when, it's not impossible.
It can be done. Yes. I was on an Alabama podcast last night as a guest, and they were talking about how much different their corners and their safeties were. Under Saban, it's no brainer. They're going to be elite. They're going to play man coverage, not a problem. And now this year they're a little bit younger and just they're not as good. They do still run a lot of man coverage, about 52% of the time. And just for reference, the national average is 36. So they are way up there as far as like, we want to play man coverage. That gives you opportunities. That gives your receivers opportunities to break free, kind of lose them in the mush. If you run mesh, that's a nice way to break up man coverage. Mike Leach did it all the time. That's one of the things that he did that was so successful. So there are ways that you can have an explosive passing game if they play a lot of man, which is what they do. The problem is that you need your quarterback to see it, and you need the offensive line to give the quarterback time to see it. And that's something that Mizzou has struggled with. And this defensive line, this Alabama defensive line, is not super havocy, but they are pretty good at creating pressure. So that's tough. And against Auburn, Drew Pine had 3 explosive plays that he was a quarterback for. One pass to Jordan Harris that went for 17, one pass to Theo Weiss that went for 21, and then that Marcus Carroll run that he broke off 20. That was it. Brady Cook was literally all the other explosive plays. So if you're looking for that, I agree. Ground game has to get going. The Alabama defensive front is surprisingly soft against the run, 40th. Usually they rank 40th in run defense when they're usually top 10. So that's something that you can take advantage of, and then explosive plays through the air. And of course, like you said, finish drives. You cannot kick field goals. We cannot trot Blake Craig out for 45-yard field goals every single time. Number one, he's not good at it. Number two, that's not how you beat Alabama with Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams. So agree on that. When you flip the coin, Missouri's defense is playing Alabama's offense. Jalen Milroe, Ryan Williams. You don't know anybody else because they all kind of stink. I guess Jam Miller is okay as a running back. But again, this is a surprisingly one-note Alabama offense, which was starting to kind of trend that way towards the end of the Saban years and has really been highlighted in the first year of Kalen DeBoer. Outside of Ryan Williams and Jalen Milroe, what scares you about this offense?
I mean, nothing, but Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams are enough in and of themselves to scare me plenty, because Jalen Milroe is very good at throwing the ball deep. Ryan Williams is very good at running and catching deep balls, and the Mizzou secondary is very poor at defending that. Because we've already talked about the limitations that the Mizzou offense is going to have, it's only going to take a couple of those big, deep passes for Alabama to seize control of the game, much like Auburn kind of did at one point in the game. But I don't see Alabama, giving that up later on in the game, being at home. So that's what concerns me. Also Milroe on the ground, dynamic athlete. We faced some good scramblers this year. Mizzou has faced good running quarterbacks. he is by far the best running quarterback that they have faced on both aspects, in fact, throwing the ball and running the ball. I'm not sure if there is a running back in college football right now that is as explosive as he is in terms of if there is an open crease, he's going to take it, and he's faster than everyone else on the Mizzou defense. So those two guys are just two guys, but they've already proven against better teams than Mizzou that they're enough to get some wins.
Yeah, it's a scary prospect. I will point out that the Alabama offense has been beaten twice in two different ways, right? Vanderbilt and Tennessee. It's nice that we've seen like two different answers to the same problem because Missouri can kind of pick from both here. But again, from Vanderbilt, we talked about the offense, shrunk the game down, controlled the clock. The other aspect of that is that Vanderbilt's defense was not very good. I mean, they barely had any havoc rate to speak of. They were mostly like in a movie when you're like the hero's hanging on like a bus that's driving like 60 miles per hour down the road and like swerving. You're like, oh my god! And like Vanderbilt's just barely hanging on. That was basically
Diego Pavia was driving the bus.
Yeah, there you go. So like, you're hanging out. You can't really stop them. You just got to go for the ride. That was Vanderbilt's defense against Alabama's offense. The difference, though, is that they did kick the bus driver in the face twice. They got a pick six, and then they forced a fumble on a sack on Jalen Milroe, and that was enough to break serve and have them kind of steal possession away and score on one of them. To give them that cushion where they could ride it out to the end of the game. So that's how Vanderbilt did it. Two timely turnovers, one of which was returned for a touchdown. Tennessee, on the other hand, was havoc crazy. They had 9 tackles for loss, a bunch of sacks, swatted away a bunch of passes, but also turned them over 2 times. So it's really simple what Missouri's defense needs to do. You need to create havoc plays, whether that's swatting away the pass or getting tackles for loss, and you need to turn Alabama over. Ideally, you end up at +2 at the end of the game, but I'll take +4 too. It's just you cannot just line up hat on a hat and pretend that you're going to win, especially with Ryan Williams. And I'm not saying Corey Batoon's going to do that, but we haven't really seen a whole lot of turnover generation or havoc. And I know you just wrote a piece talking about Corey Batoon and how good he is, but this is kind of a matchup against his old bosses. This is his toughest test by far.
Oh, no doubt. Jalen Milroe will give you the ball if you insist upon it. He's thrown 6 picks. He has at least 2 or 3 fumbles. So he's not adverse to giving you the ball if you ask really nicely. Perhaps by driving his face into the ground, but that's going to require them to get pressure on him, and that's just not that's the one area that this defense has not really excelled at this year, is getting consistent pressure, and they're going to have to do it with their front 4, because as soon as they blitz 2 or 3 guys, he's going to find Ryan Williams open somewhere, and he's going to catch it, and he's going to dance around and end up running 70 yards for a touchdown. So they're going to have to get pressure with their front 4. They're going to have to just hold on and hope that someone wants to be generous and hand the ball over. And then it's going to have to be a full team game. Vanderbilt won because their offense scored just about every time that they touched the ball, and they very rarely punted. I mean, they only punted once or twice all game. So that's the way that Mizzou's going to win this game. They're not going to win this game by it's not going to be a grinded out game. I hate to say it because that's how Mizzou's probably best served to win this game normally with a healthy Brady Cook. We're not going to get that. That's not to say that they have to score 40 points like Vanderbilt to win, but they're going to have to be efficient and score touchdowns. So if the game is in the 17s to 20s, I'm not feeling good about it. If it's in the upper 20s to 30s, and that includes a pick 6 or a fumble return for a touchdown, then that's the game script I'm seeing where they're gonna have a chance to win this. But if it looks like the Auburn game in terms of neither team really scoring a ton of points, I'm worried that the defense is going to eventually break down at that point if you put that much stress on them against a player like Milroe. Auburn didn't have a player like that at quarterback, so there was never a ton of stress on the defense to cause that game to break.
I guess it kind of depends on context, because I'm with you to a point. If there's not a lot of scoring, but it's because Missouri's holding on to the ball, and there's been like 6 possessions heading into the fourth quarter, I actually feel pretty good. 24 points, if you can get there, I think, you'd be set. However, if it's not that, right? If it's, oh, we're on possession 10, 11, 12, that's when I'm like, no, the dam is going to break. This is not sustainable. So I in part, I do agree with you on that. It's just, can Mizzou control on offense? Can they sit and just not only maximize your scoring opportunities, but really just run that clock out? So you only see Jalen and Ryan a handful of times. That's really it. And, you could say, well, if you bottle up the Alabama run game and they're passing all the time and you're wasting a lot of time. Yes, that's true. But Alabama doesn't really run the ball all that much with a running back. They're usually always looking to pass, and then Jalen Milroe is scrambling around. So in theory, it feels good to get them one-dimensional and know that they're going to pass, but also Jalen Milroe is basically Ashton Genty who can throw the ball. So that's not a great place to be. You got to get turnovers, man, and you got to create pressure. And we haven't seen it consistently yet. So I don't know if it's possible, but we're going to watch and see. Let's get prediction time. This is kind of the first game where you're like, do you even think Mizzou wins? And then, what is the score at the end of the day?
Man, I don't think Mizzou wins. I probably would have picked against them if Brady Cook was 100% healthy and had played the entire Auburn game and they won by 20 points. So I definitely can't pick them here, knowing what we know now. It's not gonna be a blowout, but Alabama's I think it's gonna be a frustrating 10-point lead and just kind of sit on it. So I'm gonna go Alabama 31, 28-17, something like that. Okay. I think Mizzou will find a way. Maybe they will get a turnover, get a short field, get a couple touchdowns in there, but it's just not going to be enough, unfortunately.
Of your 4 outcomes in a game, Mizzou blowing out Alabama, throw that away. Not possible. I feel like Alabama blowing out Mizzou without Brady Cook is on the table, but not as likely. I think it is going to be a close game, is my point. I really do. Drinko's just, again, that's how he plays the game. It's a close game. It's always a close game. Even if Brady Cook comes out there, I just, I don't feel great. I'm going to say 31-20 Alabama. Kind of to your point, it's close enough where you have hope, but far enough away, you're like, how are we going to do this? And it's a game on the road. I'm sorry, until proven otherwise, you have to just assume that they're going to lose, especially to any team with a pulse, which sucks. I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love for this clip to be, snipped out and then played over and over in the locker room as they are dancing away and finally beat Alabama. And I go, I'm great. I'd love to be wrong here. You have to show it to me at least one time, and we haven't seen it. So I'm going to say Alabama 31, Missouri 20. I just hope the right decisions are made when it comes to Brady Cook's health. I don't care what it is, frankly. I want him to be healthy for the rest of the year. I don't care enough about this game, even with the implications of it. I'd like for him to finish the season. So whatever it takes to get there is what I'm looking for. How are you going to watch this game? How are you going to manage these 3 hours?
I'm hopefully with at least one iced cold beverage with me. I'll be writing a recap for Rock M Nation following the game, so I can't partake too much in the middle of the game, but perhaps afterwards I might be drowning my sorrows a little bit more. It'll probably be one of those where it's not as a nail biter down to the wire at the end where I'm locked in a room by myself in the basement and screaming at my children and my wife's crying in the closet or anything like that. Probably not going to be that tense of a situation. it'll be a kids running around screaming and I'm like, be quiet, and just be mad, be frustrated, be mad. That's about what that's what I expect. I've been there plenty of times, so it won't be anything new.
Be frustrated, be mad. It should be on a Missouri football shirt. I feel like that's very, very on brand. But that's the show for today. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. You can leave a comment or you can rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Nate G. Edwards. He's at Burst to Hearst. And of course, you can follow the Rock M flagship at Rock M Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rock M Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.
ZOU.